most of the time scripts aren't around because most business owners, it's like, dude, you know your product in and out. You, especially in the info space, like you are the product, you know how to sell yourself. So you don't have to transcribe anything and put it. But then when you add in salespeople, like they don't sell like you sell. We have to take the guesswork out of the process so that salespeople can know, like, this is how I ask these questions.
Payton, welcome to the podcast. Good to have you here.
Oh, baby, excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Look, you are a legend. I mean, some may say that you are the real Welch, that the man behind the real Welch. I know you guys duked it out and for Battle of the Last Name, but some may say that you are the real legend between
The
you.
real legend. Hopefully he doesn't hear this.
No,
He's gonna.
I think Lance may be the real legend, but
Lance is the OG Welch. That's for sure. That's
well,
for sure.
good to have you here. Look, for the people who don't know you, you are the GOAT or one of the GOATs when it comes to sales. I've just heard you on so many calls, rip apart, what salespeople are doing, do call reviews. I've just seen you and I've seen people throw random objections at you and you've just handled them and you're a pro at this. So I wanted to bring you on. I wanted to talk about sales, but like anything, I don't think someone comes out of their mother's womb and is like, perfect salesperson, gift of gab, I could go do whatever I want. What was the road to becoming like a sales professional?
Yeah, man. First, I mean, wow, one of the goats. There's a lot of people in the sales space that are also goats I really respect, like Cole Gordon, Jeremy Miner, Matt Ryder, Bill Walsh. Like, dude,
Jeremy's been on here twice, so let's see how you hold up.
Yeah, dude. See, man, like they're incredibly talented for sure. So I'm honored that I am even in the same names as them. But yeah, I mean, I definitely didn't come out of the womb being a good salesperson. I actually didn't want to be in sales. Our father, it's funny you talked about Lance, because our father always told us, like, okay, if you want to make really good money, you have two options. Either one, you need to be in sales, or two, you need to be a business owner, right? And I never wanted to be either. I just didn't. It's actually funny. What got me into sales, I was about 20, I was 21, and then I realized, like, oh, life is expensive. There you go. There was my big realization. I was like, dude, I don't have money for I can't afford to live on my own. I can't afford to do anything. And so I got a job as a cold caller for a real estate investment company, which was an extremely humbling experience. And I even reach out to some of my old managers back in the day. Every now and then I just thank them, because I was like, dude, I was a little shit. Thank you for being patient with me. But that was one of the best and worst jobs that I ever had, because, dude, I mean, we were ripping out 200 plus dials a day, calling people that had downloaded a free ebook on real estate investing on Bigger Pockets that they had obviously not read. And they didn't know they were getting a call, and they didn't want to get a call from me. So I learned really quickly how to be able to navigate conversations by cutting my teeth on those calls. That eventually led me into what I do today, which is like sales for the online space, coaching, consulting, service providers, stuff like that. And I told this story. You should listen to the TWC podcast, because I told the story of how Taylor didn't want to hire me because we're family. And it's like, well, if I have to fire family, then holidays are never the same and everything's going to be awkward. And so I went around his back to the manager that he had at the time. And I was like, dude, just bring me on. Like, let's just do it secretly. Like, if I'm not good in 6 months, you can can me. And I ended up being, the top salesperson. And so I was able to, like, earn my keep there. But I didn't want to be in sales, because we all have this, like, inherent belief about sales, like the used sales car salesman, which, by the way, nothing against that at all, because, dude, they work unreal hours and they are always on the lot, always selling. Like, that's a difficult gig for sure. But you know what I mean? It's like,
Yep.
we just grew up where it's like sales is where you just take things from people.
Sleazy.
And yeah, it's sleazy. And so that was a really big resistance point for me, because I love people. I do. Like, I've always loved being around people and interacting with people. And over time I've become more of an introvert, but I still, like, care about people, and I don't want to, I want to sleep at night knowing that, like, okay, I did the right thing by people. And so when I started getting into the shift of, like, okay, if I sell something that is of true value to people, then it's a win-win. I get to make money. They get exactly what they need. And so when I could shift into, like, okay, sales is service, then that kind of like that took the lid off for me. And it took me a while. Like I couldn't close the door for the longest time. And then over time of just like, man, just relentless, reviewing calls. Where could I have done differently? Reviewing calls of people that were better than me, and then literally practicing listening to their call, saying their question or their bit the same way they did until I couldn't tell the difference. Eventually, I was able to get good enough. But yeah, man, I don't think anyone is like just an automatic sales pro. You know, they're shaped as in their early years through different jobs that they had that increase interpersonal skills. But in the end, you have to figure out how to use your brain and learn, like, how does this sales actually work? Why do we need to ask these questions? When do we know that we need to go deeper? When do we know we need to push on an objection versus like let them have it and schedule follow-up, stuff like that. So that's how I got my start in sales, you could say.
It's funny because your father said if you want to do something, like if you want to make money, go into sales or own a company. My parents are immigrant mentality. You want to make money, go be a
Yeah.
professional, go be a doctor, go be a lawyer, whatever it
Hmm.
was. So for the longest time, I was going to become a lawyer. And then my brother-in-law, his father was an entrepreneur and said, hey, if you want to have freedom, own your own business.
Hmm.
And I remember at the time, I hated sales. I
Yeah.
like to some extent, I still hate sales. Like if that we could work through that live if you want,
Yeah,
but
we'll do sales
we'll
therapy
do
later.
sales therapy on it. But I used to do telemarketing,
Hmm.
and it was good. You know, I saw how much money I'd make. I'd come back home. It was great, but I think there was like there wasn't an alignment of what I was selling and thought I could actually help. I thought I was just like trying to take money from people. And I remember on a telemarketing call, there was an old lady who answered, and she had no clue what I was selling her. And she's like, "Oh, you need my credit card number? Sure, here's my credit card number." And I just hung up the call. I was like, I hung up the call, and my boss said, "Pick it up and dial it back." And I said, "No." And so I got fired.
Yep.
I got fired. And I was like, man, that's what sales is. This is like sleazy. It's scummy. I don't want to
Hmm.
do this anymore. Um, and then, yeah. And then I think the hardest part about going into sales is listening to you talk. I think the hardest part for me was, you close deals and you have no clue why. Right. So that's a problem, right? You're like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm the best salesperson in the world. Someone bought from me. And then you can't replicate it. And then you get dealt with 10 no's and you fall out of love with what you're selling because it's like, man, this is just ridiculous. Is anyone going to buy what I'm saying? How do you keep, because I believe like most of it is like you talk about is mindset, is the call prep that happens before the call even happens. How do you, in
Hmm.
the face of like you were getting your teeth kicked in and you were developing your reps, how do you keep that positive energy to pick up the phone and dial the next time, pick up the phone, dial the next time, and do it so that you do get better, so you start closing sales? What's the call prep for you, especially when you're dealing with a lot of rejection?
Yeah. Um, okay, so I think there's a couple different answers to that because one, yeah, like closing deals and like getting the right result, but we don't know why we got the right result still leaves you in this place of like uncertainty where it's like you don't have control. That's a
Yep.
reason, by the way, that's a reason why any of us like get into being a business owner or being a salesperson is because we want control over our income, or like you even said, freedom. Like I want control over freedom. Like, dude, that's the whole reason why we get into this in the first place. Like otherwise, if I could have control over my income by working at Starbucks, I would do it.
Yeah.
Dude, I would sling
Without any
Starbucks
risk,
drinks.
it would be great.
Yeah. Yeah, it would be easier if I had control, but like that control comes with the cost of like the difficulty of the job, so to speak. So I think first things first, it's like if you don't know why you are getting deals or you don't know why you're not getting deals, like we have to start there. That's called attribution, which is a secret hat. All of those names that I mentioned earlier of like goats in the sales world, like there, we all have this common trait where it's like we have, I call it the FIO muscle. Figure it out. There is a reason why deals are getting closed. Like, let's figure that out. And then now I have a template. Like, these are all the things that I need to do that lead to a higher chance of a deal closing. And then I can make more money. Like, that's it. So, first of all, like, get really good at finding attribution. And we can talk more about that later. But in terms of like Yeah, keeping the positive attitude to keep making dollars. Well, one, like it's sales is a game of averages. It's the law of averages. There's not a single baseball player that hits at like a 100% batting average. That's impossible. In fact, in baseball, it's like really low. It's like a point, what is it, 0.2, 0.3, and you're
Yeah.
like, you're crushing, like you are in the major leagues Hall of Fame or whatever. So it's the law of averages. But two, I think, yeah, like we are, especially if you're in a performance-based career, and even if you're not, like life in general is a performance-based game. Like the better you perform, no matter what you're doing, the higher satisfaction of life, the more territory you're able to take ground in, the more you can get the things that you want, get the life that you want. And so I have a major focus in what I do on the intrapersonal side of things, right? Interpersonal, everyone, like that's how we're communicating right now. We have rapport. You and I have talked before. Like we have good interpersonal relationship with other people. Most people don't have a good intrapersonal relationship with themselves. That's what intrapersonal means. So what do I believe about myself? What do I do that like increases my confidence, my belief in myself? I can do anything that I want to do. And so like I think salespeople in general and business owners too, but salespeople especially, they have such a focus on just the tactical, what do I say here? How do I like eye contact, which is very important. All interpersonal skills are extremely important. If you've gotten on the phone with someone that didn't have good interpersonal skills, it's like, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But also there's that intrapersonal strength of like, I'll make one more call. The success I'm looking for is right around the corner. I'll make one more call, make one more call. When you have a really good intrapersonal strength and depth, Marcus Aurelius called it like I think like the inner locus of control. Ryan Holiday calls it like your inner citadel, right? That's that intrapersonal strength to keep going, even though I might not be seeing the results that I want. The best athletes, the best business owners, anyone that you look up to in life, Elon Musk, I don't care who it is, they have this intrapersonal skill set where it's like, I'm going to figure it out. I'm not going to accept failure. I'm going to keep going. There is a way to get what I want out of this job, life, X, Y, and Z. And it's worth continuing fighting for and keeping my confidence high. Like that's the key to be able to be making more dials, getting better at sales, all of that stuff. I think that was a long answer to your
No, it was
question, but
great.
that's the focus.
It was great. And I remember I was reading a book, I forgot what book it was, and they had a really good example that if you pitched your product to every person on the planet, and let's say only 0.01% closed, right? An awful close rate, you'd be one of the richest people on the planet.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So it just goes to show it's a numbers game, but how can people not just chalk it up? I don't want to dismiss that and be like, there's no skill involved. It's a numbers game. Pick up the phone, call as many people, call 1,000 people. You'll eventually close one, and that's how you make money. How do you what's the process to eliminate as much risk as possible? I know that's there's so much that goes into that, but how do you at least prepare that you're in control of that call to mitigate or to hedge against just it being a total numbers game?
Yeah, because you're right. Like, okay, it's a little bit of a dance here. Takes two to dance. And yeah, it is a numbers game, but like for instance, I turned 30 this week.
You're
I'm
young.
getting old, dude. I'm getting
No, you're
old now. I'm
young,
getting
man.
old. I'm
You're
like 50
young.
at heart. I go to bed
I'm
at like
I'm
8:30 and
like I'm
everything.
like 42. I'm 42, so you got time, man.
So I'm getting older, which means I've decided to make golf a pillar of my identity. I'm all about golf now, you
Yeah.
know. And here's like, dude, golf is a numbers game too. I could like what one way to get better at golf is like, yeah, I can just hit golf balls at the range until I die. Will I see improvement? Yes, but it'll take forever. Or I could get golfing lessons and then shorten that learning curve drastically so that it doesn't take me until I'm 80 to finally break 100 on my golf score or whatever. So it's the same thing here. It's like, yes, reps are important. It is a numbers game, but then it also needs to be like combined with like tactical, interpersonal and intrapersonal, like development, learning, skill building, stuff like that. And so again, interpersonal skills are great, but the intrapersonal is what will actually enhance your interpersonal delivery. That's why Have you ever gotten on a sales call with someone? It's like, man, they're saying the right things, but it's like, it's not here. Like they're
There's
just,
a
it's just
disconnect.
a talk track.
There's
Yeah.
there's a congruency issue.
Yeah. It's like, dude, I'm not feeling like there's no belief there. Like subconsciously, we do this all the time. Have you ever met someone you're like, I just didn't get a good vibe from them?
Yep.
Like, I don't know that my fiance calls it the ick.
Hmm.
And she's like, I don't know, there was something off about, like, we do this subconsciously all the time in our regular conversations. This happens on sales calls too. It's like the delivery, the intrapersonal strength of someone is like easily measured if you pay attention to it. Right. And I actually just forgot your question. So what you're gonna need to repeat that to me.
I how do you like hedge against that risk of it just being a total numbers game and you having like control and becoming a professional? And because otherwise, like what we said, it's just a numbers game. But I think there's more to it than it just being a numbers game. There's a skill involved. There's a prep involved. There's a way to make sure not every call just becomes a coin flip.
Yeah. Okay, a coin flip. Man, that's such a good frame. That's such a good way to put it because my issue in 2018, 2019 was I finally got good enough at sales after burning through probably like 50,000 plus dollars of ad spend. I got moved from a closer role to a setter role because they were like, we're spending too much money on you. I was like, oh dude, I got to get better. So I was actually setting deals for Taylor and different people on the team. And over time, I've figured out like, okay, this is what will allow me to close. So there's step one. But then I was just on a roller coaster. So the coin flip, oh, I relate with that so much because every day for literally like a year and a half, I would sometimes be on fire for a week and I would collect $200,000 cash. And I'm like, I am God. I am Bill Gates. I'm rich. And then I would go the other weeks and it was like I couldn't close the door. And it's like, well, what's going like why? Why is this happening? I was rolling the dice like
It was the
every day.
leads.
It's the lead, it's always the leads. It's always the lead quality. Always. Yeah, like I was just rolling the dice. And so it's like I I never want to feel like I'm rolling the dice on my future. I'm rolling the dice on the outcome of the day, on the outcome of this call. And so what I started doing is I started paying attention to like, man, the days, just like we were talking about earlier, it's like the days where you wake up and you're like, oh, I'm dangerous today. We all know, anyone listening to this knows exactly what I'm
Like in
talking
the
about. It's
zone.
like, yeah, the stars align, and for whatever reason, I'm just sharp. I'm in flow. Every meeting I have, every sales call I have, like, man, if I sound like this every single day, I'm going to be rich. I'm going to get everything I want. We need to get really good at like finding attribution for those things. And sometimes it's just as simple as like, dude, don't just call it a day and celebrate and go home and be like, yeah, cheers, I'm the best. Like, take 10 minutes, grab a notebook and think like, man, why did I feel so good today? What are some of the habits, routines? Maybe it's something that you did like, recovery the night before. I don't know, but there's something in there that made you feel that way. And if we can get that clarity and attribution, then we can turn it into a stencil.
Hmm.
So every day, if I do these things, which led to me feeling on fire, in flow, in pocket, whatever terminology you want to use, well, then now we've got like literally a control panel. It's like anytime I want to feel this way, I just press these buttons. And I think that's the first step. Like if I could go back, I would have focused on that before I even focus on like really sales stuff in general. Jim Rohn even says, here's the key to success. Work harder on yourself than you do at your job.
Which is
Well,
fun, which is funny because you're gonna have people listening to this and be like, "Man, just give me the sales advice. Just tell me what to say. Just tell me the objections, like the objection handling. Just tell me, how do I frame the call? What tonality to use?" And you're telling me that almost majority of your success has been attributed to nothing to do with the sales call.
yeah, I would say a majority of it has nothing to do with sales. Yes. Because here's the thing too, and this isn't just weird theology. Like I've run multiple giant teams. I've had, 40 plus people on a sales team before. And it was interesting. Sometimes we would hire someone and let's say, top producers, they've got years and years of experience. Like they know what they're doing. They have the skill set in sales. And we would hire someone that has no experience, but man, they've just got that energy of like, what an opportunity to be here. Like the world is my oyster. I'm so excited. And they would end up out producing people that had all the experience in the world. And it's like, okay, whoa, there's something here. Why is this happening? And it was literally like an intrapersonal strength on one side, even though there was a lack of experience. And over here, might be an abundance of experience, but a lack of intrapersonal control, and they would get outperformed.
Hmm.
Like John Maxwell has even said, like a leader with great skills but no passion will always lose to a leader with lower skills but more passion. Like the most successful people we look up to are all saying these things. There's got to be truth to it. And so yeah, it's like if you can control how you perform every single day, well then it's just going to enhance all of the things that you learn as you accumulate your like skill set and experience. It will just enhance that. So I would say to someone that's listening to this and they're like, well, yeah, I just want sales advice. Like that's fine. You'll still see some success as an average salesperson. You will, but you're going to be on a roller coaster where you are at the whim of like how you feel every day and you don't have any control over it.
So let's talk about the passion part, because it's easy to be passionate when you're like, yeah, pick up the phone. Oh, I'm hungry. But when you start selling the same thing, the same script day in, day out, 25 times a day or whatever it is,
Mm-hmm.
or how many calls, eventually that just becomes like, oh, all right, got off the call, got to pick up the phone, start all over from the start of the script. That guy
Yep.
just said no, got to start all over, all the way at the beginning, all the way at the rapport build or whatever phase you want to call it. How do you keep that passion going when, it's the routine over and over and over? It's like going to the gym. You pick up the same weight, do the same exercise 150
Oh yeah.
times. It's boring.
Yep. Dude, so I can explain it, or I don't know what do I have the ability to share my screen and show you something?
Sure.
Okay, so if anyone's listening to this, I'll try to describe it as best as I
Go watch the
possibly
YouTube
can.
video. Go watch us in
Yeah.
person. How's that?
Yeah. Okay, so this is a little bit of I didn't create a beautiful diagram for you, but can you see this right here?
Yep.
So this is what we're talking about right here. Is like it's monotonous. Oh, every day it's like it's just the same thing every day. So this is actually what I was talking about. Like when we're first starting out, we have a very high rating of like natural excitement, inspiration, fun. It's because anything new is always more exciting, right? And then over time, like, okay, we get more experience and skill, but you notice like, okay, our natural excitement, inspiration, fun, the newness, the joy of it slowly starts to decrease. And so what we have to do is like the better you get at your job, the longer that you're a business owner, the longer you're a salesperson and you start feeling that monotony, what we have to do is like right here, our emphasis is in increasing our skill. But over time, our emphasis needs to shift into like, okay, what can I do to increase my excitement and my man, I wouldn't rather be doing anything else today than ripping sales calls.
Hmm.
Does that make sense? Like
Yep.
this is what we see with a lot of seasoned salespeople is like they get so good at what they're doing, but they lose that natural excitement, inspiration, fun. It's not a game anymore. I would rather be doing anything else. And so we have to become more intentional when we start feeling what you described about the like, man, there's just no passion anymore. Well, our intentionality needs to shift to what will make me feel more passionate about this. Again, this goes back to that intrapersonal skill set. What will
Yep.
make me stay excited, stay hot? This is fun. Wouldn't rather be doing anything else.
Like Daymond John was one of my first mentors when I had a clothing
Yeah,
business, and I was sitting with him. And I remember when I first started my first meeting with him, I'm like, maybe I'm naive, but I believe I could build this into $1 billion business. And he just smiled, wasn't phased. He's heard all this before, right? And he just looked
sure.
at me, he goes, and I go, maybe I'm delusional, maybe I'm naive. So he goes, remember this feeling. So I said, what do you mean? He goes, you want to make $1 billion? If you could bottle up this feeling and sell it to entrepreneurs, you'd make $1 billion. Because what happens is every entrepreneur comes in, they're all excited. Their pet project, their baby is born. They're all
Hmm.
excited. And then they get punched in the face. Stores say no. No one wants your stuff. People call it ugly. You run ads, they fail. Everything just happens. Life hits you and you get
Hmm.
knocked down. And you're like, wow, maybe you become cynical. Maybe no one wants this. Maybe this is a disaster
Hmm.
idea. Because if you could hold on to that feeling, the longer you could hold on to that feeling, the better you have at succeeding, the better chance you have at succeeding.
It's so true. Like think about that. Like let's actually think about that scenario because if there was a I don't know, a potion. Oh, sorry, I don't know if I'm allowed to
Yeah,
curse. I
good,
don't
go,
know.
go. You're good. Go
Okay,
on.
perfect. You'll bleep it out. Yeah, dude. If there was a drink that I could have every morning that would make me immediately be in flow,
Yep.
how often would you drink that?
all the time.
First thing in the morning, every single day.
But I would drink it in the afternoon. I would drink it at
Dude,
lunch. I would
yeah,
just
I
keep
would hook
chugging
it up
that.
to an IV.
Yeah,
Yeah,
man.
100%. So it's like, okay, we have the ability to do that. It's not in a convenient capsule or like a drink or anything, but like we we can do, there are people out there that are living that way. Man, what a dream. I want that for myself. If I feel that way, that kind of like expectancy and like, man, it's worth working hard. My discipline is through the roof. Then I will get all of the things that I want. My objection handlers are going to be solid. My sales calls are going to have a drastically a different outcome. I have more control. We can do these things too. We just have to find attribution for what makes us feel that way. That's why I'm a really big proponent of like, man, let's find out what routines, habits, activities, behaviors, thinking makes you feel that way. Template it out. And then I had a mindset coach a long time ago. He called it his emotional control panel. So it's like, man,
Mm.
anytime I wake up and I'm like, I'm just not in the zone, I'm feeling a certain way. What do I want to feel? I can press that button. And it's
You said
usually
it.
a routine or a habit or something that gets him in the zone. And it's like I have this panel. Anytime I'm feeling that deficit, I can press this button and then I can feel the way I want to feel. And Mallette even talks about this too. In one of his videos. I can't remember which video specifically it was. I'll send it to you later in case anyone in the podcast wants to listen to it. But he said like, I discovered I've all my life I've wanted to change how I feel. I didn't like how I felt, and therefore I wasn't able to perform how I needed to perform to get the things I want. And I realized, he said, if I can control and change how I feel, then I can get everything I want easier because as a natural byproduct, I just perform better.
Mm.
Like that's the key right there. Obviously, yes, we still need the skill sets. You need to review your sales calls. You need to follow the process. You still need to practice these different like skill sets, but your retention and ability to extract on the things that you've learned will be drastically enhanced if you can get this intrapersonal deficit filled inside of you. Does that make sense?
100%. But how much of it would also be people are taking calls that they shouldn't be taking, which affects the morale. They don't they don't audit, they don't do proper quality control, so they get on calls with people who probably wouldn't be good fits for whatever they're selling anyways, and it leads to no sale because they just say, "Hey, do as many sales calls as possible," and that also probably leads to like a loss of morale, right? Like no one wants to buy my stuff. But if you got on the call with better quality or you audited the quality, wouldn't that help your spirits a little bit?
Yeah, it could, but that's the equivalent of saying the any of your followers or people listening to this that are in like the health and fitness space, they're going to hate this example, but it's in the end, it's like sound. That's the equivalent of saying I am unhealthy and overweight, and so I need to just cut out seed oils.
Hmm.
Like, will that help? Like, sure, it will, but like getting your ass on a treadmill is going to be better. Following a workout plan, a diet plan, regardless of the micro seed oils or whatever, like you will see greater success from focusing on the main things, the highest leverage activities, than the like, well, I just need to speak with better quality leads or better quality prospects. Like, yeah, that's important. It can be beneficial, but there's this other area that has way more leverage, way more, it'll be a way bigger needle mover than just speaking to the right people. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Because my early days, especially when I started the agency and even now with consulting, when I would do sales calls, I'd see someone coming broke, no money. How much money do you have to invest in the growth of your business? $0. How much money are you doing? $1,000 a month. I'm like, I'm not taking this call.
Mm-hmm.
I got nothing to sell them. And if I take this call, I'm just gonna get annoyed. I'm gonna get pissed off. It's gonna set my whole like I'm gonna go on a downward spiral. Why is everyone that wants to speak to me broke and has no money? And I'm just going downward spiral. So I'm a big fan of engineering the environment. So
Yeah.
just take that out of the equation and I'll be a lot better.
I mean, there is truth to that. Like if all of your leads are broke, they're not a good fit, then yeah, like the law of averages doesn't make sense. Like you're not gonna hit anything,
Yep.
But your ability to fix that lead quality issue is typically stemmed to two things. One, like your skill set of like being able to fix that, and then two, also like your intrapersonal strength to like continue working on figuring it out until you find the problem. This is why people give up and quit. Like this is why people will stay stuck and trapped in circumstances that they don't like, or they like, this is not a desirable situation or circumstance, and they stay there forever, is because of that intrapersonal deficit of like, okay, there's something better out for me. It's worth putting in the work to figure out what is causing this so I can get out of it.
Yeah,
You know? So again, like, yes, important, but is it as important as this other topic, this other category over here that will actually alleviate that problem? Like, okay, well, let's just go to the root instead.
I agree. I like it. One of the things you sold a lot for the info space or the coaching
Mhm.
consulting space, that space. One of the things I see a lot, and when I started this, I've dealt with this problem. It's from in that space, you're selling kind of air, right? You're not selling like a website, like air. At the end of the 6 weeks, you will have a website. You could take that, it's something tangible. You walk away with it. You're not selling a car.
Sure.
You walk up the lot, you're selling a car. You're selling I will give you advice. And if you do the advice, it could work, it could not work. It's just gonna be one giant test together.
Yeah.
How do you overcome that? Because that's one of the hardest things that I've had to overcome. We could talk about how I've overcome it after, but like people listening, I've dealt with a lot of marketing agencies that I've worked with, and that's their biggest problem. They're like, they all ask me for a guarantee. I don't have a guarantee. I wish I could give them a guarantee. If I could give them a guarantee, I'd be a billionaire. How do you overcome that?
Yeah.
The non-tangible
Yeah, I
part.
was about to say that's a non-tangible sale that we're talking about here. And the answer is like, okay, well, if there was a tangible thing that I could sell them that would fix it, and then they didn't have to do any work themselves, then I would end up selling that because that's easier to sell.
Yeah.
Right. But in the info space, you're selling access to increase in skill set, increase in thinking, increase, like, probably thinking actually, like, you're in chamber, like, dude, a lot of it has to do with just like how you think and your ability to solve problems and increase your skill set. And so for the online space, like, that's the solution. So you are selling the solution, and yeah, it might not be a tangible, but this is how life works in general. It's like, do the right things, get the right outcomes eventually, you know? So
Yeah. I just like for me, it was let's talk about the agency, for example. It was, well, what if I go with you versus the other agency? What can you do for us that's different than the other agency? So, I mean, forget that whole question as a whole, because there's many ways to answer that. But for me, it was the what can you guarantee us at the end of 90 days or 180 or 180 days, whatever it was, what will be different in our business? Like, will we make more money? Will we do all that? And the answer in the beginning was I'd kill all my sales calls, literally kill all my sales calls. I was the worst because I would just be like, no, I can't guarantee that. No, I don't know. I don't know what's going to be there in 180 days. If I had a crystal ball, I'd make millions. And then they just went with an agency that was like, oh yeah, we could definitely scale you to $150,000 next month. And then they get burnt and then they'd go out of business. But like that was the hardest part to overcome was the I'm telling you we're the
yeah,
best at what we do. If we can't do it, no one else can. But it's also I don't know what 90 days is going to look like in the future.
that's because we're talking about the difference between like a like done for you and like a
Yep.
done with you
Yep.
style offer sale.
Yep.
A done for you, it's easier to offer guarantees because, dude, if I'm taking you on as a client, but I'm gonna do everything, you don't need to do anything. Well, then yeah, I can guarantee, because it's like I can guarantee that I'm gonna do everything I'm gonna do. Like, it doesn't require any action on your end. For the done with you, like the coaching consulting style method, there's a
It's all
direct
you.
correlation. Yeah, like it's me too, because I need to be a good mentor, good coach, good consultant. But then it's like your results are heavily predicated on you also following through on the things that I tell you are going to work. So it's like, okay, I I can guarantee that if you follow all of the instructions and if you behave like my best clients behave, then I can guarantee I'm going to do for you what I do for all of my other clients. But in the end, I can't I can't join a fitness program and then not do anything and be like, well, this is bullshit. You gave me a guarantee. Well, I
Mhm.
didn't do anything. Like, you didn't deserve the results. So that's where it's like, yeah, it might be easier to sell the done for you guarantee because it's all you. But like, for that specific example, like, yes, they need to take responsibility, and you need to let them know, like, you have to do your end. But also we need to fact check as well. Like, I'm really big on fact checking objections, not just handling objections, but fact checking objections, because some of them are real and some of them
Yep.
should be honored. Some of them are bullshit, and you don't know unless you fact check it. So I need to fact check with that person. Is the done for you option truly better for them? And if it's not, I need to let them know that, and I need to explain why. If it is, then I need to be okay with them going with the done for you option and not getting the sale.
So expand on that. How do you know whether it's an objection that's worth just like sometimes people just like to talk and say something and really don't give it any validation whatsoever versus it's an objection that you feel you need to jump in and handle?
Well, you need to, yeah, we need to. That's why I love the word like fact check objections, because if someone is like, well, I just need to get my ducks in a row first. What are the ducks?
Mm.
Like, what does this actually mean? What does this objection truly mean to them?
Which is
Like,
funny because like I'm gonna let you continue, but you ask questions and it's like so common sense, but salespeople don't ask that next question because they don't want to kill the sale or they don't want to be seen as aggressive. But if you're having a conversation with someone, that would be the natural response. If I
it
was at
would.
a bar with someone, I said, "Hey, do you want to like, oh, what do you do?" Well, I'm thinking about getting all my ducks in order, and then my next response would be like, "Oh, what are those ducks that you want to get in order?"
The
It's not an
reason the reason
aggressive
why
question.
is because in that scenario, you're not focused on what can I get out of this.
Hmm.
Salespeople that are focused on the sale, the outcome, they need the deal. They are doing everything they can to just not rock the boat. And in my frame, my perspective
You like
here, it's
rocking the
like,
boat.
well, I do like rock. I love confrontation.
Yeah.
It's a
I've seen you
big
review
piece of
sales calls. You like
my
confrontation.
favorite.
Yeah.
But it's like, okay, if I can remind myself, like, okay, I'm only here to do what help this person make the best decision for them. It's like rule number one of sales. It's like help the prospect make the best decision for them. That means I'm not worried about the sale. I'm not worried about any of this. I'm worried about this person getting what they need, even if that means not working for me. That opens me up and gives me the freedom. I can question whatever the hell I want. I can fact check whatever I want.
Total
Like, what are
detachment.
the ducks? Or like, yeah, like let me just sleep on it. Let me think about it. Well, okay, I can just say, yeah, that's fine because I don't want to rock the boat. But what if they actually don't and they're just nervous and they're just afraid? Well, that needs to be handled, right? So I need to fact check that. But what if they've been burned by someone else in the past and that's why they're like, I want to take time? Well, depending on the context, that changes how I'm going to take the call, because if someone's been burned, then I don't want to push. I don't want to handle this objection. Instead, I'll honor it. Or how about this? The spouse objection, right? If someone's using the spouse objection, we need to fact check it, because if they're just using the wife card or whatever to not have to take action, that needs to be handled. But what if he and his spouse have made an agreement that, like, we're going to talk about these things before, and I've burnt trust with her in the past, and so she will literally divorce me if I spend money. Well, dude, I'm going to honor that. Like, this isn't worth getting a divorce over. Like, yeah, talk to your wife. Let's talk tomorrow. That's why it's like context matters. If you've ever been in an argument with your spouse or with anyone else, and then you didn't get all of the data, and so you were making an argument that ended up not being appropriate, you know what this feels like. It's like egg on your face, like, oh shit, like I look like an idiot now. I should have like asked the right questions and gotten the context. This
How'd
happens in
you
sales all the time.
how'd you learn to develop that balance though between being, man, you're just an asshole versus, you know, I'll be an asshole when I need to be an asshole, but it's for the betterment of helping you. Because I'm sure in the beginning, your first calls when you tried these lines, some of them may not have landed like the way you want them to land and be like, dude, you're completely disrespectful.
Yeah. Um, I think intent has a really big part to play in it. Because if I'm being an asshole to get the deal, then I suck. Like that, you are dishonoring rule number one of sales. Always help the prospect make the best decision for them. If I'm being an asshole, which is subjective, by the way, but if I'm being an asshole because I want this person to like get what they need, well then, dude, like that's appropriate. Like when I was an athlete in high school, running track and cross country, like my coach told me some things and I was like, what a dick. Screw him. But then later when I'm thinking about it, it's like, oh, but he's right. Like I didn't like him in the moment, but in the end he was right, and it was all towards me getting what I wanted, and therefore they earned more respect despite the fact that they were being an asshole.
Plus, you're
And
showing that the
it's
coaching starts now, right? Like
yeah.
you're giving them an example. Like you're not letting them off the hook. You're not letting them let themselves off the hook. And the coaching starts now. This is what you could expect being part of here.
Yeah. And this also has to do with like order of consequences, because it's like, okay, let's use this as an example. Like shoving someone to the ground. Is that rude? Well, yeah, like I would never just shove someone randomly to the ground. But what if it's because they're in the middle of the street and they're about to get hit by a car, and so you shove them out of the way on the ground. Well,
Mm.
now the intent changes whether or not the action is appropriate or not,
Yep.
right? Like if so, we need to pay attention to the order of not the first order of consequence, because the first order of consequence doesn't matter. It's the what is the intent and like the end byproduct and the end result. If it is for them to get exactly what they need, well then pushing someone to the ground is actually not a bad thing. If anything, it's like it's in service of this person. So that's where like aggression in sales needs to be backed by like, okay, what is the intent? Is it to help this person so that they can make the best decision for them? Am I needing to like have some confrontation on this call where it's like I am revealing to them how their behaviors and decision making is actually hurting them so that they can get what they want? Well, then, dude, I'm a hero, even though I'm being an asshole, so to speak.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah. How important is having a script?
Very.
Are you
Yeah,
shocked by
very.
how many people don't have scripts and they just wing
Yes.
it?
Yes. Well, most of the time scripts aren't around because I mean, most business owners, it's like, dude, you know your product in and out. You, especially in the info space, like you are the product. You know how to sell yourself, so you don't have to transcribe anything and put it. But then when you add in salespeople, like they don't sell like you sell. They, like we have to take the guesswork out of the process so that salespeople can know like this is how I ask these questions. This is how Jason communicates, working with him and stuff like that. Because salespeople are never when salespeople come in, they don't have your experience. They haven't been working on this product for the past 3 years. They haven't been working with clients as long as you have. So you have to like meet them where they're at, like almost like travel down the sophistication ladder and put work into what am I saying? What questions am I asking in the script? Why do I ask these
Mm.
things? And that removes the guesswork for the sales rep. I've written a lot of scripts over the past couple weeks just to help some clients out. And it's like, man, yeah, like shocker, your salespeople aren't producing. It's like, well, why don't they just sell like I sell? Because they're not you.
Yeah.
They they need
Why
they
do my
need the
employees care about my business the same way I care about it?
yeah, they won't.
Yeah.
It's a good point. Like we need to meet them where they're at and like remove any guesswork for them. Because if I give you a problem and there's guesswork to solve, dude, you
Yeah.
are literally like a scholar of the like you'll figure it out. These sales reps aren't you. So when they're like filling the guesswork, it's not going to be filled in the way that you want it to be filled. So
How
scripts
often
are
do you
very
revise
important.
your scripts though?
Often, like especially if you notice on calls, like sales reps aren't communicating certain things that need to be communicated. They're not asking questions that need to be asked. Well, then that tells you like, okay, we need to refine, we need to fill this deficit. If the closing percentage is below like KPI, and it's because sales reps just aren't hitting the right things in discovery or in the offer and objection handling, well, then that tells you, okay, I need to put in some work to make it easier for them to communicate this how I want them to communicate it.
And when should someone, like let's say a business owner, take off the role of sales off their plate and start looking to hire people?
Hmm. I think it would have to do with okay, I think there's a couple of different criteria there. One, we need like call volume to be at a place where you can even justify like you can feed a salesperson,
Yeah.
right? You need to have the bandwidth, or like fulfillment needs to have the capacity to be able to take on more clients. Because dude, even if you do have tons of call volume, but like you are at capacity for how many clients you can take on, well then it doesn't make sense to have a salesperson either. um I think my gut for like the safest way to do it is for the business owner to be crushing in sales. They're at a really healthy closing percentage. And then you get to a point where you are wearing so many different hats that eventually the sales hat needs to come off. But to
You're a
me, the
bottleneck to the
safest,
rest of the business.
Yeah, the safest game plan for that is like sales should be one of the last hats that you take off, because that's how your bit like that's
Yep.
the lifehood of your business.
Yep.
You know, like that should be one of the last things that you ideally take off. Now, there are some people where it's like they hate sales. Like if you're a business owner and you're listening to this and you hate sales, then it's like you can go ahead and take that sales hat off, but it's way more risky to do it early than it is to do it later.
Well, I think if you have like tons of leads coming in and good lead flow and you absolutely hate sales or you hate phone calls, then you going on the call, you're probably going to kill all those deals anyways. So you probably would make more money having a salesperson than you doing it.
You could, but then
If you
how are you going
dread
to
it and you
train?
never want to get on those calls and it's like this, I'd rather be getting a root canal right now than be on this call right now.
Yeah.
I personally would rather hand it off to someone if I felt that way.
Yeah, but how's that salesperson going to get trained? That's something that you need to also take
Well,
into
I think that's a mistake
consideration.
with a lot of business owners. They're like, I'm just going to hire a salesperson. I don't have to train them. I'm going to bring in a superstar. They're just going to close for me. I'm just going to make money.
Yeah. Yeah. But then how do you know they're a superstar if you're not good at sales? I think like every business owner, if you want the safest, most predictable way, get good at sales first.
So we talked about script, but I know where you stand on the part that's not in the script, the nonverbal, right? You call it 3D versus 2D chess. Like that's why you love Zoom calls. I've heard you talk
Yeah.
about all that. How do you develop that muscle? How do you teach that muscle? How do you figure out what tonality to use or when to pause,
Yeah.
when to do a lot of these things?
Yeah. So just for everyone that's listening and they hear that 3D chess, like back in the day before Zoom and phone and all this stuff, it's like every sales situation was in person. So you were playing 3D chess. Now that phones are around and stuff, it's like, okay, you can still make really good money doing phone sales, and I have, but you're only playing 2D chess, which is like what you say and how you say it. Over Zoom, we get to play 3D chess, just like back in the day when every sales situation was in person. It's what you say, how you say it, and then the nonverbal communication. Even right here, if anyone's listening to this or watching this on YouTube, you can see I'm talking with my hands, my eyebrows are going up. It's like there's facial expressions. So there's a lot being said that isn't actually being said out of my mouth, right? So a lot of that is practice is done through reps, reviewing game tape. This is why, like I mentioned earlier too, that like a lot of our interpersonal skills are built through at a young age, just our social situations. I waited tables for like 2 years. So it's like I got really good at like talking to people, handling different issues, when I was waiting tables.
Getting the
I
tips.
also Yeah, I also worked on staff at a church for a long time, and you'll learn a lot about dealing with people in those situations. So it's like some of this is like some people have an unfair advantage because their upbringing has been just a masterclass over and over and over again on interpersonal skills, and other people maybe didn't have that same upbringing. That doesn't mean that you can't learn it, but it means that like you need to consume information. One, like how to win friends and influence people. That was a big deal for me when I was younger, and I was still like learning on how do I interact with people. But besides that, it's like be intentional on calls, on like where can I get better? How can I handle this thing better? Review your calls so you know like, oh, I didn't like that. I need to change it. Also be intentional about practicing outside of calls. So like, for instance, brevity is a really big interpersonal thing that I have to fix on the phones all the time, because salespeople are good at talking. That's an issue. They talk too much.
Mm.
So it's like, dude, we got to trim this fat. Like you were just going on a monologue here. And like a lot of these different AI sales call
I was just
trackers,
going
like
to
I
say
use
on
Fathom.
Fireflies, you could see like that's one we use. You could see the percentage of who's talking.
Yeah, perfect. So Fathom
Yeah.
will even have a timer going that shows you a monologue of how long you've been talking.
Oh,
So
wow.
like
Yeah.
to be intentional about this, like yes, practice on calls, but then outside of calls, next time you go on date night, practice not hogging the microphone. Ask really good questions. Try to get them talking more. Next time you go to church, you're hanging out with the boys. Like you can practice these interpersonal skills
My wife's really
outside of
good at it,
calls.
so we would just sit in silence. It would just be a
Yeah, you got
standoff.
it. Would
It would
just
just
you
be a
would just stare at
standoff.
each
Yeah.
other.
Who's going to
Yeah.
break first?
So it's like, yeah, the way to do that is like, yes, practice on calls, review your game tape, be intentional, then practice these things outside of sales calls too. And then what we do is, again, we're shortening the distance between where you are and the interpersonal skills that you want to have, which I think is like a underrated hack. Like people aren't doing this, which I
Yeah.
find fascinating. Like practice this stuff outside of your calls too,
Role
and
play.
it's only going to benefit you on calls.
Role
It
play.
could be role playing. It could be role playing, but that is a sales training like exercise that you can do outside of actual sales calls. That's practice. But even dude, even outside of just doing a role play, practice asking good questions whenever you're hanging out with your friends. Practice, different frames. Like I practice frames and objection handling and stuff like that, like in social situations with friends or at church and stuff like that. And no one knew I was doing it, but it's like, man, this is good practice here. Might as well. You know what I mean?
I'll let you go with a tactical question because you talked a lot about reviews. So if someone's listening to this and they want to get better at sales, they're probably going to review their sales calls and not have any concept of what they're reviewing in the first place. So can you give us the kind of like the short playbook of how to review a call? Like, because if
Yeah.
someone's listening to this and they don't even know what they're looking for in the first place, how are they going to review game tape? Like, they won't know. They'll be like, "That sounds awful. I'm not sure what I would have said." How do you break down film?
Yeah. So first off, most people do not actually review their sales calls like at all, which is like that's an easy first step. So just start reviewing your calls and anything you hear if it makes you cringe, it's like, okay, I could change something here. What are some different ways that I could have asked that same question and it would have landed better so I didn't get as much resistance? Like sometimes that's it. But secondly, it's like you need to give that game footage to someone that's better than you are at sales. Like this is how athletes get better. This is how like execs see, like that's it. Like give the game tape to someone that is better than you at sales and let them point out and pick out like this is a different, I've seen this handled way better if we just change this tweak or we change this question or we change the delivery. So it's like one, first and foremost, review your calls because we all know you're not. Like most people are not. But two, like give that game tape to someone that's better than you and let them tear it apart and make you better. Simple as that.
All right. Top three ways to get better at sales, books to read, and I'll let you give a fourth, which is working with you, a plug at the end. But three ways people listening could become better at sales. What are some advice like books, videos? Like what do you recommend?
Yeah, one of them that we already just mentioned is like be intentional about practicing interpersonal stuff outside of sales calls. I just think it's easy. The salespeople that most people in the online space know about, like I saw them go from decent to really good in like a very short amount of time because they were doing this. They were intentional while they were on the clock. They were intentional while they weren't on the clock. That's just simple. Two, yeah, books like Pitch Anything by Oren Clough. Great sales book. I actually don't even read a ton of sales books because I don't feel like I get a lot from them. Like I don't
Yep.
know. I feel like they're kind of basic, but like consuming inspiring information that will enhance your intrapersonal skills. So Jim Rohn, John Maxwell. There's a lot of like Ryan Holiday. I'm spacing on his name. Who wrote the 10x is better than 2x?
Ben Hardy
Ben
and Dan
Hardy.
Sullivan.
Love his books. Love those books. That is a instant boost in intrapersonal strength, which enhances my ability to perform well on calls.
It's
That's
fun.
easy.
It's amazing you're saying all this because only now, where I've achieved a certain level of success, do I start realizing that this is all the part I ignored in the beginning and could have had success a lot earlier. It's the part
Yeah.
that I dismissed right off the bat. Just teach me the tactics, just teach me all this. And now I'm going back, even as a business owner, that's cool. Thumbs up AI, but I don't know how that happened. But only now do I go back and realize, and now only that's all I read right now is the mind fixing and making sure that
Hmm.
I always stay optimized and whatever. Business owners ignore this so much.
Yep. They do because it's not sexy and it's like it doesn't show you like an instant ROI, or
Yep.
most of the times they don't think it does.
Yep.
But like man, all of the successful people that we all look up to, like they put a major emphasis on this area of life. Like okay, if they do it, I should do it too. Like it's just as simple as that. Call reviews, obviously we talked about call reviews. Like review your own, take them to someone better. And then that fourth point that you gave me the option to is yeah, reach out to me or reach out to some of the other sales goats, as you put it,
No,
in the
no.
space.
Reach out to Payton. And if you want to reach out to Payton, here's how you can find him. Go for
Yep,
it.
there we go. We right now, I mean, facebook.com/the Payton Welch. That's the fastest way to get a hold of me. You can look at
You
some
know
of my
you're a goat when you have
content.
the in front of it.
Yeah, the Payton Welch,
Yeah,
not just a Payton
you
Welch,
know you're
the
a goat.
Payton Welch.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the.
Shoot me a message. Super simple. I'm happy to, I get requests all the time for like working with me, and it's like, okay, well, let's first do a call review. We'll do an initial consultation, see if there's anything that you actually need, because sometimes there's not. So that's a good way. I've also got a new product called Invictus, which is all about enhancing that intrapersonal strength in your life. That's just a small subscription where you get access to my Telegram channel, and I divvy out some different content, the things that I consume that make me stronger as a person, which helps me close better, perform better, whether it's in sales or any other area of your life. You can reach out to me about that info as well. But Facebook is just the easiest way to get a hold of me right now. The Payton Welch, facebook.com/the Payton Welch.
We'll put it in the show notes. Payton, thank you so much. I really appreciate you.
Honored. Absolutely. Thank you.